Hello and welcome. I'm Nicole Wallace, Executive Director of the Poetry Project. Oh, thank you. It's incredible and truly moving to see so many people gathered here tonight as we honor and celebrate the wildly luminescent, ever visionary, and much beloved Alice Notley. Before we start, I want to thank Poetry Project staff and our AV techs and videographers and all of the volunteers who made tonight possible. And I also just quickly, bathrooms on both sides in the back if anyone needs those. And I'm going to keep this short because there are 30 readers, and what they have to say is infinitely more important. All right. Alice's far-reaching work, writing, and voice, and decades-long involvement and presence at the project have not only contributed to, but have definitively shaped the project's poetic, social, and artistic history and lineage, as well as its forward and future directions. As we know, Alice worked not only across and within this realm, but also transcendently beyond in all directions of time and dimension. And she's left this infinite imprint upon us. Her profound influence has been deeply felt across multiple generations of writers and poets, as well as here at the Poetry Project. It's more than an honor to be able to gather and celebrate Alice with you all here tonight, and specifically in this very room, within this church at the Poetry Project, a space and place that for nearly 6 decades has held so much and so many, including Alice and the others who have departed but who are still fully present, the voices, frequencies, reverberations, and resonances that connect us both forward and back across time, if there is such a thing in the first place. Again, thank you all so much for being here. I'd like to turn it over to the true hosts of tonight, dear friends and Poetry Project family, Anselm and Edmund Berrigan. Thank you.
Hey, everybody. Thank you for being here. And thank you, Nicole, and the project staff. I'm not going to say too much, well, we'll see how the night goes. You're going to hear plenty, and I think most of what you'll hear will take care of any kind of bogus prefatory remarks that I'm not going to make because they're not necessary. I'll just say that Mom was really funny, and this is, we want this to be as much a celebration as anything else. And she always used to arrange to come to New York in November, and so often did readings here and other places in November, because her birthday is in November. She would have been 80 on November 8th. So this is also a belated birthday party. And then because the way the French do things, you get the estate bill 6 months from the day of death, which is basically yesterday. We've got this event's free. But if you see a big hat going around, there's a tax bill that's in the works that's surprising. We're going to start with Marion Farrier. And actually, I thought we were going to start with Peggy, but the thing says Marion. And the thing lists me twice, which is a mistake. So maybe Peggy, you should read first, and then Marion will come up. We'll read second. Please welcome Peggy DeCoursey.
the Scarlet Cabinet from Alice's introduction. Poetry, including prose that is poetry, novels, stories that are poems, could be a force for the reestablishment of the individual, of the invisible, for making people's inner lives more important than this constant assertion of substance. For poetry is not about words or how one thinks or making things. It is about essence, the secret inside the material. It uses rhythmic speech to tell what it knows, because measure helps the defining of essence, because whatever is done should be done attractively, because rhythm is bound up with living. Poetry aims at truth, but the truth is not intellectual, it is the truth. That fact poetry knows and academic disciplines do not. For example, a mythic essay at the truth is probably better than a run of polysyllables or equations, because figurative outlines and bright colors are easier to see and understand, and paradoxes are better resolved and used when they are not named paradoxes, but are named Coyote or Athena. Poetry has had many uses in the past which are denied it now. It told stories, for example, often more quickly and more essentially than prose does, and taking up less bulk of pages, less of the physical and psychic space of the outer world. Movies and most novels are simply more dominating than poems are. They impose their stories. They impose minds upon us. Poetry's involvement with music formalizes it, beautifies. Its aesthetics are more like nature, less like a human's. What is made becomes mysterious, instantly itself, even if what it tells is tragic. "24 poems, also known as 165 Meeting House Lane, 24 sonnets, excuse me, and this is sonnet 23. I noticed in a dream of unpacking, my clothes had become more and finer, new top, sleeveless, lime green, scarlet one, ruffled, low neckline, black pants, more satiny. They're rayon, my brother's, with a new ribbed scroll design, along and above side slits. They'd become oriental pajamas. So I thought to wear today my short red dress, black tights, and off-white knitted shawl together for the first time, and I finally, this month, I felt I was looking fine." And from Mysteries of Small Houses, Lady Poverty. Lady Poverty sings in the gullies. To all you go without is added more as the years. Youth's face, health, certain friends, then more, and so to get poorer. Life's arrow tapers, thinner, sharper. She always sang there to purify, not the desert, always pure, but me of my corrupt furor. So losing more further along in this dream of first-rate firmament fireworks, consigned to roam above the brown dirt, occasional maxilla, and be shaped badly, twisted internally, join her truly. She's I, she should be. The shape of life is impoverishment. What can that mean, except that loss is both beauty and knowledge, has no face, no eyes for seasons of future delivery. Rake the dirt like Mrs. Miller used to, down at the corner, had a desert yard and raked her dirt. Beginning in poverty as a baby, there is nothing for one but another's food and warmth. Should there ever be more than a sort of leaning against and a trust of food for another from out of one? That would be poverty. We're taught not to count on anyone, to be rich, youthful, empowered. But now I seem to know that the name of a self is poverty, that the pronoun I means such, and that starting so poorly, I can live. Thank you.
And now please welcome Marion Farrier.
I went to all of Alice's readings in New York for the last 50 years. And I spoke to her on the phone every Saturday morning for the last 25 years. So it's Alice's many voices that I miss. So when my husband died, Alice had lost Ted a few years prior, and so it was Alice I wanted to be near because she always knew the right things to say, the right tones. And there were many other situations of the next few years where she also knew the right thing to say. So when I got knocked down by an opening cab door, or when I was rescued sobbing in Midtown after a nightmare experience, she knew the right reaction. She burst out laughing. And the reason that was the right reaction was these stories always had something bizarre, otherworldly, comic about them. And I would tell them to other people. They'd be very serious, so out of concern for me. Somebody else I remember trying to stuff their fist in their mouth, trying not to laugh. Well, not Alice. She went right for the belly laugh. She knew that these were anecdotes, and anecdotes are supposed to be funny and interesting. And if I could laugh at them, sometimes while they were happening, I liked that Alice had that reaction too. There was Alice of the rant. She could get quite shrill about things, and sometimes she would apologize for having gone on these rants, and she'd say, well, I didn't see anybody all week. Nobody called, I didn't talk to anybody, and I just had to get it out there. These words, thoughts, arguments, she just had to get them out into the world. So there were things like, for example, when the French government banned the wearing of headscarves in schools, that was a subject that she would rant about. She completely agreed with banning the wearing of headscarves, not only for students who didn't want to wear them, but she seemed to think that even women who wanted to wear headscarves should be banned from doing it also. She made no apology for that. Then there was the Alice of song. She was a big Dylan fan. She knew lots of words to old standards. At one point, we both realized that we had gone to Sunday school as children, and despite being in different religious denominations, we knew the same Sunday school songs. And if you can imagine Alice, the renowned poet, singing over the telephone, Jesus wants me for a sunbeam, or I will make them fishers of men. And she had a terrific memory. She would know all the verses to these songs. I could remember a few odd lines, maybe the first verse, but she remembered lots more than I did. So I just feel like I've lost a lot of my things that happened in my lifetime because I don't remember them, whereas Alice did. She could come up with things that happened decades previously that I had completely forgotten. So there were things like, oh, you remember that party that you and Ted and I went to in 1973 or 4, which, yes, I did remember. And then she'd say, well, Anne Waldman was there, and Sam Shepard was there. Well, I didn't remember that. Or 1975, my friend Helena Hughes and I stayed with Ted and Alice in Chicago for several weeks. And one day, somehow, Helena and I got into our heads to run across the street, climb the fence to the school on the opposite side, and jump fully clothed into their swimming pool. Well, yes, I remembered that. But a couple of decades ago, Alice said or after the fact, Alice said to me, you don't seem to remember that the police came and Ted had to convince them that you just had these boisterous young ladies visiting from England, and really there was nothing bad going on here, and I will make sure that they behave themselves now. And really there was nothing happening here. Well, this just seemed so strange to me that Ted Berrigan, of all people, could confront these police officers, make them think that there was nothing going on here. It didn't seem possible. But I'd forgotten that part of this story. And I'm just realizing, well, what else have I forgotten that Alice would be able to remind me of decades into the future? It seems a shame that I've no longer got her to rely on to remember parts of my life, because we did so much together over 50 years, and I really miss her. She was a good friend, and just for the record, Alice Notley and I never or very rarely talked about poetry.
Thanks, Marion. Please welcome David Berrigan.
Anyway, hello. It's it's really nice to celebrate Alice here in the church, which plays such a central role in the story of our family and our families. I'm 62 now, and I guess I met Alice when I was 10 or 11, and I don't remember when, possibly in Chicago, although the time doesn't work. I'm sorry I wasn't there to see Marion and Helena go swimming. But Alice was just so kind to me through all these 50 years that I knew her, and she didn't have to do that. It was a little complicated. The 70s, the 80s, the 90s, and et cetera were complicated too, but and our families. But so for show and tell, for today's class, I brought 2 postcards that Alice made and gave me, and you can see them in the back room there if you want. And they each have poems on them. One of them also has a picture of a baseball player. I think she was a huge fan of baseball, or maybe her sons were. So I thought I'd just read that one because the broadside that Nick Sturm printed also had a baseball player on it. So it's a baseball state of mind. So this poem was untitled. The price of the gods, the wrong sandlot, a double variable, and no striking disclosures. There was some misery. And again, in order to understand the phrase, a long reign, I think.
Thanks, David. Is this on? She liked baseball cards. And she really liked these little stickers that were around for a few years of certain players, because we had these sticker albums. And then she liked making collages. And there's actually this long body of visual art that she's made that's also part of the work. So there's a few people listed here, including Andrei and Harris, who were not able to make it. Hi, guys. And so next, we're going to hear from Eileen Myles.
Hi. I'm one of a group of people that met Alice, and that room to the right down there, that little dinky room, was where poetry workshops used to be. And so, like, I think I've seen at least two, Bob and Jeff, and I don't know if Susie's here. There was a gang of us. It was packed. It was like a hot workshop. Everybody wanted to be in Alice's workshop. Everybody had a crush on Alice. It was such an intense experience, but it was on Friday nights. So I met her then, and then became, I don't know, a fan, a friend, and a groupie, and a devotee, and just went on for years. But I guess in terms of mourning and celebrating, I feel like I'm one of those people that I just tell the same story all the time. And so when I heard that Alice died, I was sitting on 3rd Street in my car doing alternate parking, and so. It's just so I feel like in the best way I could have, I instantly wrote a poem. I felt like, because it felt like to be sitting in New York, to be sitting in the East Village, and to hear that Alice was not here, it just felt like I was in this one big gong, which was the whole neighborhood and all our feelings and hearts. And even though I knew Alice in Paris and visited her there, the beginning of the friendship was this, so much about being in this neighborhood and what that was like to live 5 blocks away and to be somebody. I so attached myself to their family. It was sort of like Alice kind of had to roll me out. I would come in casually and sit there for 5 hours, And I came out to Alice and Ted. I mean, it was like they were the first people I told that I was gay before anybody else. And they were great. They were kind of incredible. But so anyway, this is the poem I wrote when I heard. So it's called "Explaining Alice." The streets. Feels like it's in a weird position. Okay, here's the streets growing shadows for my friend. The woman rattling her bag who has no home is for you. I never knew there's so many trees on this street. She whispers, talking to what's in her bag or her phone. Charlie sniffs, Charlie's a dog. Charlie sniffs, Alice, we wanted you home, and you are. Alice, my dog's toes clutch this life. You don't try hard for poetry. Birds chirp. You're in it. If I loved you all my life, Chinatown truck covered with decals and a flag, and my lover, and the next car's cluck clock says, no, that's a friend. Charlie's attentive to the world. The world is soft today. Each dog barking at new things. His shirt and pants are green, but different green. Just when I thought the world wore buds, his wires are dangling. Graffiti frequently layered, a pool blue and a darker Persian blue like Bernadette. I'm glad I don't believe our friends are all together at some party. What party? Having a fight. The fight is here. I must be mourning because I can't ask for anything. I can't set anything up. I can't fulfill a need. She's moved, repositions, slightly talking away. Her hair is big, tall, but it has that orthodox lady wig look, but country western. Whoever is receiving her conversation is a speck at the bottom of her bag, but that speck is God. You had a philosophy about mothers, but they weren't all the same. Even you weren't. The greens aren't the same. The barks are different. Each person entering the shadows in a new way comes out into the sun. It's morning in New York. Somebody's coughing. My mother wanted to go, but she said, God doesn't want me yet. I said, does God love you, Mom? Oh, yes, very much. I don't know your philosophy of God would be interesting and important. It would change very much. I wrote a poem about the wind once, a kind of deity, and it might be like that, one day, even one part of a day. Nobody had as much time for poetry as you. There's something Boy Scout about the awards for people who want to make sure they're reading the winners. But you need to waste time for your poetry. You could have your high-pressure moment, just a splash, go in there, rat-tat-tat. But time is no kind of reward. It's not quite punishment. You had just this much, and you used it. I always use you. I use my car to charge my phone. I'm leaving it on in the sun.
Thanks, Eileen. And now we're going to hear from Simone White. Please welcome Simone.
I'm not going to tell a story. I'm just going to say that it's really, I love you. I love you a lot. There isn't much to do if you aren't geology. Watching fish in scallop-bottomed shoal, I'm in a vision. There's a faint, far mountain, the mountain inside which the dead live. I'm alone. No, you. I catch a fish in a basket. What shall I do with it? Eat it raw? Am I so dependent? If I don't eat, and if I don't eat, how do I know I must eat? Who are the dead? There aren't the dead yet. There are only the rulers of the underworld, waiting for me, the first woman, so that they will have a subject. I read last week in a magazine we're all descended from a common ancestor who apparently didn't fuck a second common ancestor to generate us. How did I get here? But this is a dream. In a dream, you simply know you belong, have always been in this plot. E.g., I'm in Needles with two friends who are disgusted at the new law that all cactuses must be turned off by 7 a.m. each morning so they won't bloom. Another friend has gone out to turn off all our cactuses. We watch through a window as, at the row of parked cactuses, he turns the bud on each, its knob-like protuberance, so that the cactus can't bloom all day. It would be red. Back at the vast primal lake, I've generated hardwood without thinking, or did I think him? No one ever thought me. How did I get here? I didn't get here. He doesn't say anything today. The authors of this myth say there's no speech yet. The water itself was turbulent first, a massive body full of seeming shapes, which might be called anything, gods, forces, equations, any word or projection. Lewd dance, a flamenco for a couple. She's suddenly on all fours, skirt up, he's arousing her with his hand. They're fully clad, and she's even wearing long 19th century drawers. See the outline of vaginal lips through white cotton. We will bind our left hands with our right, water with water. I stand naked on the smallest sandbar there might be. You, whom I love, receding or encroaching salt, sit down and think, that is, observe the light and shape, not quite geometric in the fluid other. Email, internet, there are so many ways to learn more. Keep in touch as if the chaotic waters of you weren't near enough. Is I or you a demented bag lady? I mean, is God that, pulling universe out of random bags? You have foolishly seen fit to call it harmonious or delicately chaotic as it suits you, this universe, as you see it in your job. I gave in and wondered about my abilities all afternoon. But aside from that, you physicists, what do you think of sexual flamenco? Was it once water, and now it's the art of degradation, beautifully performed? Why not, someone might say, why not degradation? When it returns to water, who will see it in the waves, clitoris and the hand touching it, which is your blind eye, the physicist's blind eye?
Thanks, Simone. Everything cool there? Yeah, okay. We do behind the scenes right in front of you here at the Poetry Project. Speaking of that, please welcome Bob Rosenthal.
The nature of time is to give no breaks, but the nature, the sweetness of season makes stars loosen and emerge from her pocket and remains in the sky like a locket forever, the one where Fanny Braun's hair is still brown. Time lies in my body, a story I spin. Tonight, I move in place upon my planet and make with myself this planet's texture. I live my life and death by being here. Poem, St. Mark's Place, caught at night in hot summer, lonely, from the beginning of time until now. Tompkins Square Park would be midnight green, but only hot. I look through the screens from my third-floor apartment as if I could see something, or as if the bricks and the concrete were enough themselves to be seen and found beautiful. And who will know the desolation of St. Mark's Place with Alice Notley's name forgotten and this night never having been? Alice was an amazing poet, an amazing friend to all of us. And we won't miss her. We're going to keep going.
Elinor Nauen and Johnny Stanton and Bob Holman and Rochelle Kraut. Yes? No. Lots of people stood up at the same time, so I'm trying to figure out what's going on. Hi, Douglas Rothschild. Okay. There's some random folks hanging out outside we could bring in too.
We just need one down there. Douglas has a non-speaking part. He's a choreographer. I'm the silent chorus.
Must be Father, for I have sinned. It's my last confession.
Relax. You're cue him if he needs it.
I did cue him.
Oh, you did? Okay.
Okay, go ahead.
Begin.
Are we ready?
Yes.
Presenting a play, Alice and Johnny at Phoebe's. A play made of let's see what made of. Mail. Oh, yeah, I wanted to get it. Mail and memory.
Hey, Alice, how'd you like the play?
What play?
The one we just saw at La Mama.
I was thinking about something else.
Me?
Why don't you call Elinor and ask her to come over for a drink?
I liked the impenetrable deep eyes of all the characters.
They were wearing masks, Johnny.
Oh. Beer? Could we have some beers here? What is this? Oh. Oh. Beers.
By all means, come to Paris. We'd love to see you. We are currently hoping that at least some of our visitors will elect to stay, at least part-time, in the cheap hotel around the corner. You and Elinor, of course, have the right to sleep right between us, since you've obviously had your own sex life disrupted from time to time by the tall one.
I haven't left Manhattan in 40 years, and I'm not about to start now.
My mother is trying to locate a guy with a missing outer ear who's good with safes. Her floor safe won't open. I can't remember what's in it or why she wants at this point to open it.
I sing Christmas carols in the bathtub.
Beer? Beer here?
Beer.
So my gynecologist retired. I messed up my appointment with a new woman because I forgot something they considered essential, and I had to make another appointment. She had no appointments till May. This is at a clinic. And there were no appointments with any woman gynecologist until May. What about with a man? I asked over the phone. Much better, the voice said. I can give you one tomorrow. He gave me an appointment with a Professor Zorn. I looked him up online. He was born in 1937. I was seeing an 85-year-old gynecologist, male. Can you believe it? He is the head of the gynecology service, so is a professor, which is above a doctor.
Did you see him?
I saw him. He was a head shorter than me and pretty old and wearing a blue bow tie. In France, there is no garment to wear for the examination. And for my previous doctor, I took off all my clothes and walked around naked. With this guy, I guess because he was a man, I took off, he told me what to do, my bottom clothes while he turned his back. Then he gave me the pelvic. Then I put them back on and took off my top clothes. Then I turned to face him with my two operated-on breasts, and he threw his arms up in the air and smiled joyously. He said, "Oh," or "Ah."
Oh!
I think it was because the surgery was so good. Then he examined my breasts and pronounced them healthy. He was slow, meticulous, old. It was a curiously peaceful experience. But then I remembered that guy Elinor and I used to see in New Jersey. Was his name Bruce? He was the last male gynecologist I had seen. No one sees a man for some reason, and I didn't particularly want to then, but I intend to from now on because it's easier to get an appointment. But I don't think Professor Zorn will be available much longer.
I miss Ted and Doug and everyone and our life that was supposed to always be our life.
I found out a few years ago that everyone knew about the postcards and my correspondence with Joe about them, and then later other matters during his illness. Everything is on record, and people know that Joe gave me money, etc.
What a strange life that everyone knows everything, but doesn't have a clue how it really was.
There was a Frank O'Hara special event at the Poetry Project, and I read in it, and so did Larry Rivers. I bumped into him the next day, and we told each other we liked our readings. Then he said to me, "Nobody knows what it was really like."
The end. I'm sorry? I like your shoes.
I'm glad I didn't know that was happening. I just want to put a few shout-outs out there to the folks from San Diego area who came in for this, to our Cincinnati, Kentucky allies who showed up, to friends who've come from all over New England and the Midwest and other parts of the country, to the D.C. Rockville contingent, and I'm sure, and the Canadians. I went up to Toronto recently and I thought, ooh, I could read Dad's poem in the 51st state. That'll get me in good graces with everybody. No, I love Canada. I didn't want to leave when I was there. All right, good night. Please welcome Patricia Spears Jones. You want it out here? Okay.
All right, first off, you guys brought me pretty close to tears. So, and I don't do that much. I'm not a crier. So, oh my God, the last time I came here with Alice was actually there. The same amount of people were in the audience. Literally. So this is kind of like, I guess you all came back. This is like, yeah. So I had to write something because I can't do this off the cuff. I'm not like Bob Holman. He can do anything off the cuff, but not me. So I want to thank Anselm and Edmund for inviting me to participate in the celebration of a great woman of letters. Because I like the idea of a woman of letters, and I think she really was one. Her generous imagination and powerful creativity were available to all willing to read and listen. My favorite Alice Notley collection is Mysteries of Small Houses, and I think it's because we both grew up in small towns. She was in Needles, California, which sounds like a really bizarre small town. And I grew up in Forest City, Arkansas, which is not a bizarre town, it's just disgusting. Anyway, all right. It's in the Delta, it's poor, etc. Anyway, all right. And there were 3 poems that spoke to me. Quote, the future may concern me more, Choosing Styles, 1972, and You Can Give It Away. Each of these poems tells a complicated portion of her life's journey, and maybe it was the reference, ever so briefly, to Paris that made me choose the third one. as the last time I spent serious in-person time with Alice was in one of her favorite fish restaurants in Paris with Margot Berdichevsky, where we ate good food, drank good wine, gossiped, even though there wasn't very much, but we tried to come up with some good gossip, right? Alice loved gossip and food and mystery novels and her family and her friends. I'm grateful that I was one of them. You can give it away. In the last 4 years, little gustiary pleasure, I'm at JFK Airport drinking a white wine cooler, trying to write in a notebook ungamely white, iterated motel-like walls with a relief on them of a red girl sailing. I'm waiting for a plane to Luxembourg, May '87, to be a poet for a week in Europe. In my natural history, I can't find the bottom of my glass, where I see through clearly to more than a pluvial dampness of my original self. Who was ever here? The modern reddish girl on the walls, ill-starred to be remains of a fashioning impulse? Bad art. Am I bad art? I'm going away to find you. I haven't written well for a while. Which do I want more, poetry or life? I will want you quickly, not so much as if I saw through a glass to only you, but as if we were both the walls of my glass. Without you, I'm no structure to hold the form of scrutiny itself. I've no eyes side. Go to Luxembourg, hurry, it's foreign, and take a nap. Go to a festival party, poets arriving. Here come the English, says someone. They go off and drink a lot. There you are, with Wendy, Alan, Ken, all serious-faced out the window. You buy me a langouste later. How long will this take? 3 more nights till we leave for Paris together. But in Luxembourg, myself, I buy socks. Eat at McDonald's alone. You do that a lot in Paris and other places because you don't want anybody to know that you actually went to McDonald's in, like, Europe. Okay, sorry. That was... Well, it's true. Eat at McDonald's alone, amused. In predestined Paris, you have a blue lagoon. I have a Care Royale. Then duck. There's something I have to tell you. In 2 more days that I've given you myself, I mean, if I think of going back alone, myself isn't there anymore. I panic slightly, walk out, get lost between your place and the grand magazines. I've already given it to you. So if I can't give it to you, it's lost somewhere, and I am mechanics. Who's speaking? Who's watching inside me? I will get myself back by giving me away.
Peggy DeCoursey is going to read a piece written by Susie Timmons.
Thank you. Susie's an old and loving friend of Alice's, and so sorry that she is not able to be here. And this is a little strange because in her poem, she makes reference to Marion Farrier and to me by name, so it might be a little odd to hear me reading about Peggy DeCoursey, but I will do that. It's called Dream Cookie for Alice. I'm no good at addressing the public, so I'll just talk to you. I had a dream last night that I was in IKEA buying a large cookie for Peggy DeCoursey, a token of my appreciation for her reading this message out loud. The dream cookie was a jumbo double-hearted Valentine, those puffy kinds of hearts. a golden butter cookie adorned with a pink frosting banner, "Be my Valentine." There were other cookies nearby, but they didn't look too good. This cookie looked exceptionally delicious and fresh. Marion Farrier and Peggy were two of your very best friends, and they were always talking with you, so I would always hear about you from both of them because they are my dear friends too. Your news was their news, and their news was my news, and about half the time, it was a new book. How lucky to be adjacent to this gossamer web behaving as normal old friends. The geniuses do this because they can, flash back and forth between quotidian and mundane, brilliance and epic wit. The more magic I try to instill, the more vivid the spectacle grows of an 18-foot Burmese python strangling itself somewhere in a ruined swamp in Florida. But then I remember. I had a teacher. She was you. She never sought acolytes, minions, sycophants, never demanded I bow down. My teacher had fabulous ethics. Though I was a babysitter one summer, even that was educational, and the boys are alive today. It's the truth. I had a teacher. I climbed the stoop, which was steep. I buzzed 3 long times, which was very loud and probably annoying. I climbed the stairs, which were gloomy. Your door was open. Once inside, I would pass down a kinetic gauntlet of poets, young and old, to reach you at the end, bathed in the south light, smiling and kind. Any gossip? So much has happened since you took me from crayons to perfume. Alette appeared in the spelling bee. I got double vision. Marion got a hospital stay, and Peggy got a dream cookie. You got to be a ghost, drifting through the cosmos in a trailing gown of carbon, hydrogen, nitrogen, oxygen, phosphorus, sulfur, billowing with the breath of our love. So thank you, teacher.
Now please welcome Paul Slovak.
I was Alice's editor at Viking Penguin. I counted up today, and Penguin was one of 11 publishers that released books by Alice over the last 30 years. She was so prolific, she needed way more than one publisher. Penguin published 8 books with her, including The Descent of Alette, which I'm happy to report is now in its 33rd printing. Just one of the great classics of contemporary poetry, and I think very widely taught for decades now. I also fondly remember my lunches with Alice, which were in New York, and usually in the company of Anne Waldman, and almost always at Café Mogador, 101 St. Mark Street, above which Alice lived for many years with her family. After Alice passed away, Anselm gave an interview, and he mentioned in this interview, that was an interview magazine, a unpublished manuscript of hers called The Old Language. And I thought to myself, my God, isn't that the greatest Alice Notley title ever? I'm really surprised that she didn't use it sooner. The Old Language, it's about, I think the manuscript is 101 pages long. And I'm going to read just the very first poem, which is called Your Flames. When all your cities are on fire, where will you run to? You must take your children and run. Where will you go? I sat on the tripod, slumped over the vision, crying. Sometimes cities burn slowly, but sometimes the conflagration breaks them up instantly, doing it to each other since I was a little girl. Trying to find the old language before it happened, so I could tell you who you are and what to do. You are spirit pretending disastrously to be matter. You were good. The opposite is to manipulate others, the supposed matter. The wind changes. The elements of nature don't like you. It's not important that I don't, since I love everything. You won't die. I'm not talking to you as a life form, but you'll experience horror. You invented it. Why not? I'm looking for the old language. I'd like to find it before the flames come. They're your flames. They might be in the old language, burning you up before you identify them.
Thanks, Paul. And now, having resigned her position as beer server at Phoebe's, please welcome Rochelle Kraut.
Okay. Where's Marion? Marion, we met you right after you went into that pool in Chicago. Me and Bob, we were in the Chicago. And you and Helena were all wet. You were very impressive. That was the first time we met you. Anyway, I'm going to read a poem or a dialogue that was published in When I Was Alive, and it's called A Roundelay Between Two Shepherdesses. I'm not going to read first shepherdess and second shepherdess. I'm just going to read the lines, okay? But they'll be distinctive. Okay. Tell me, my gentle shepherdess, who's that so decked out in the veil? That is Miss Rochelle Kraut, of tress quite fair and temperament strong as ale. Why does the sun turn his blonde back to us to chat up a piece of fluff? She did shriek with eyes so black, he turned coward at her intense stuff. How come our sheep refuse to eat? I guess I should say decline to. They need no other good than sweet, her skinny, fuming presence to view. Why are those flowers so pale, the dears? They were so radiant, so spring-like. She told them to get a job, not rely on good looks all their lives. Why do the brooks flow moppily slow, as if they were put down and blue? She sang, I like to beat people up, and they saw she was more fresh and new. Where'd these men, both young and old, come from? And these nymphs in long skirts of green? From picking garlands on the run to crown her May's own furious queen. The sun that 'tween sulks lights the world, flocks, flowers, and brooks, most witness swear. Though sometimes fired, she's never cold. Only she is funny and fair. That's the end. She really observed people.
Thanks, Shelley. Next, we have some music for you from AroarA. And we're also really grateful for them for coming all that way. Do you need a minute?
We're having a band meeting. Sorry.
Just a brief introduction. When I was reading In the Pines, and I noticed that there were some lines that I recognized from a couple of Dylan songs and some Harry Smith anthology songs. And when I met Alice, she deigned to have me. I asked her out for lunch, and that wasn't possible, and she deigned to have me walk with her in Paris to the grocery store to get groceries. And as I was meeting her, and I mentioned that I wanted to make a record, I wanted to turn each poem into a fake folk song based on the lyrics. And Alice looked at me and stopped and stared right in my eyes and said, "How are you going to do that?" And I suppose many of you have had that experience. I was frozen and terrified, and I luckily was honest and said, I don't know. And she went on to tell me some composers had tried to work with her, and she was very displeased. But she somehow said, "You can try." And then Ariel and I, we made a couple rough versions, and I made a CD and sent it. And then when I got the email back, she said, "Well, your wife has a lovely voice. You may continue." So should we use the beats, or?
No, let's just do it Acapulco like this.
So we're going to just play a couple sort of quick numbers from the record called In the Pines. So go ahead.
I think so. Let's see.
Your eyes are like times, your eyes are like people, your eyes are like failures to see. Your eyes are like rhymes, my mother's backyard is covered with pine needles, stabbing your eyes. The ground it is misty fences, silver sharp spikes. Out on the edge where I can't see. Out on the periphery. He wasn't right in the head, I may not be right. Birds sang of the murder, train in the night. It wasn't right in the head, sang good night Irene, not a man or a woman or anything like me. Out on the edge where I can't see. Out on the periphery. Out on the edge where I can't see. Out on the periphery. 1, 2, 3, go. Be on the periphery where many martyrs fell, I've far gone into my defect
am I? Beyond the periphery where many am I?
Sometimes my song obliterates yours. Your book is terrible, violent and long. So what did you do in your song? I picked up Osiris, but I am not Isis. Looked into a void of love, I fell in it.
Out on the edge where I can't see.
Out on the periphery.
Out on the edge where I can't see. Out on the periphery. Out on the edge where I can't see. Out on the periphery. That was pretty peripheral, the end there. Yeah, we can forego. I feel like, sorry, not to be a diva, but okay, we have one more song and then we're gonna keep going. I used to say that if Alice was church, I would go. Through the deserts of dying woods and spirits thick as bats, plow on through Corolla Pass to meet my love, to meet my love. See the souls around me everywhere, one of them is you. I see my own soul, I see my own soul. How do you know? How do you know? I'm going to find your soul. I'm going to find your soul. If I find your soul, do you want it? Do you even know? Through the deserts of dying woods and spirits thick as bats, plow on through Corolla Pass to meet my love, to meet my love. The hoot owl sings, the jaguar grins. I'm taking 'em back, I say. Then I reach for a hand and lead her from between the king and queen of swords. I'm going to find your soul. I'm going to find your soul. If I find your soul, do you want it? Do you even know? I'm going to find your soul. find your soul. Dear wanted, do you even know? I should bring back a soul, it's my work after all. I should bring back a soul, it's my work after all.
That's AroarA. Just going to say real quick, I just remembered for some reason that the last thing that Mom said to her grandchildren, more or less, on a Zoom in France was something like, "And remember, don't believe anything you read on the internet." She like raised her arms to make a big impression. And please welcome Simon Pettet.
I first met Alice Notley in Wivenhoe, Essex, England, 1975, I think it was. That would be 50 years ago. And her charismatic husbands, both of them, Ted Berrigan and Doug Oliver. Friendships, affinities, lifetime affection, lifelong companions that changed my life, defined my life, inspired my life. It was at Ted and Alice's at 101 St. Mark's Place that I first dropped anchor when I arrived in New York City in 1977 and never left. I was in awe of her extraordinary intelligence, a prose writer who is now a poet, a mother who juggled the impossible, a luminous, even then, presence, and her commitment to her poems, those remarkable early poems, now many of them happily gathered by her tireless devotee, Nick Sturm, into a single volume, companion to the early books, early works. She was and remains a lodestar, an exemplar for me as a writer. What do writers do? They write and they read. Alice wrote and read and found time too to make supper for Anselm and Edmund. Who else could combine Japanese death poems and the New York Post, a must-read, Patrick Walker's daily astrology column? Ted had that eclectic and inspiring reading range too. What blessed times they were. We were fellow poets. We were fellow Scorpios. We were living on the Lower East Side. There was time. Yes, time. Really. You can scarcely imagine. It was a whole different world. Notwithstanding all that, notwithstanding all that, the Alice that was unleashed first in The Descent of Alette, the epic, mythic, torrential, jaw-dropping, sui generis, familiar poet of later years, is really not so very different to the domestic, vernacular, and lyrical freshness of some of those early works. Forgive me, but I'll always be picturing her walking towards, quote, Marion and Helena's place. That would be East 4th Street Apartments, yes? Wind-rustling, diaphanous dresses, when she was alive. The influence of Doug on the poems she subsequently morphed into was certainly strong. Of necessity, she suffered a sea change, the Alice of New York, the Alice of Paris. The poems became more politicized, more urgent, but all that conversing with the dead, the transmutation of love and loss, the transmutation of tragedy, the heroic transcendence into another world, even the hectoring, if I may call it that. I remember being stunned by her beautiful Jeremiah. Jack would speak through the imperfect medium of Alice. That was a natural extension of her person, her singular person. It was always and forever present. And what continued also, and what impressed and continues to impress me the most, was her unflinching and absolute conviction of her vocation. What do poets do? They write poems. Never for one moment in her life did she ever shortchange or deny her muse. On the contrary, she gave it 24/7 permission. Speak, angel. This was a calling, a responsibility. Whitman's flatus, the voices, call it what you wish, were flowing through her. She had, right to the very end, an absolute commitment to this understanding. Meant, she wrote, to recognize a painting as beautiful or a movie stunning, and to adore the finitude of words, and understand as surfaces my dreams, giving full honor as I honor her now, returning the favor to that all-forgiving, all-embracing goddess that created this passing world. The goddess who created this passing world said, let there be light bulbs and liquefaction. Life spilled out onto the street, colors whirled, cars, and the variously shod feet were born, and the past and the future, and I born too. Light as an airmail paper, away she flew to Annapurna or Mount McKinley, or both, but instantly clarified, composed, forever was I, meant by her to recognize a painting as beautiful, or a movie stunning, and to adore the finitude of words, and understand as surfaces my dreams, know the eye, the organ of affection, and depths to be the inflections of her voice, and write and smile. Thank you.
Please welcome Edwin Torres.
One of the stories for Alice is my boy was just born. He was 4 months old, and I was strolling up 2nd Street with him. And the cover was covered, and she's across the street. She kind of zooms across the street, and she motions to me in a very, like a general, like that, meaning to lift, to display my child to the world. So she had this, it was like, she was very, very like, she had this tone of like, do this now. I did it, and she just melted to like, oh, goo, 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 gaga. So, thank you, Eddie and Anselm, for asking me. Alice, she had a way to have you look at the world, own it, and leave it at the same time. So, Alice, thank you. This is a poem. This is my interpretation of your poem, Victorious.
lion's body, I bring you a food or mental substance, a knowledge from the supposed realm of wordlessness, the opposite of me.
Honey.
Honey, leader, honey, your hair is growing
Leader,
around
honey.
the river shades. The only thing I see is a vibrant word. Is it a word?
From
If
the
I know
lion's
flesh, not
body,
reading
I bring
it,
you
saying it without saying it,
a
lips or
food
brain, but being honey, you should see
or
this
mental
one here, but
substance or
everyone.
knowledge.
I wanted to forget them blindly.
From the supposed realm of wordlessness, the opposite of me.
Flash, and I saw how wrong everybody had been in the old times when all we created was decorative. If I might destroy the old you, I'm extracting power from which self in order to
Being
save
honey, you should see me and see there's no one here but everyone.
a voice silly and maudlin, pompous and demanding. You must now learn from this word wedge your new art. Honey, as leader, honey, I am your mind. Leading you can hear me.
In the
stand
old
counting without
times,
knowing numbers. Anyone forget them?
when all we created was decorative, if I might destroy the old you,
You have nothing but this vibration. We are speaking almost silently. You have nothing but this opposite of what you were, this moltenness. None of you, my friend.
you must now learn from this
A place where no one has to know
word
the
wedge
words or
your
counterparts anymore.
new
Your
art.
stories were invented in dreams. Your eyes were full of unsubstantial
Honey,
legends.
as leader, honey, I am your mind
Fabricated bastards, your heroes of millions. They were just
leading. You can hear me, we
is freedom.
stand.
Honey, leader, and learning a language from which you can know
Honey,
all
leader,
others.
and learning a language
And the eye that has taken over now shows you the grid of renewal.
from which you can know all others.
Honey, leader, it will slow down and flow like
Only
honey.
two native speakers left, I and the I that has taken over now.
But you're already torn. No, overlay. All language comes from here. Find it at this time.
Honey,
such a
leader,
language we came from. Its inner strain
it will slow down and flow like
yours. What are your verbs
honey.
and nouns? I am a conglomerate of anything. I speak for a joining of the already
This
contiguous
language might tear you, but you're already torn.
I am your leader, says the
No,
language, or I, the quintillion,
overlay.
the first
All
I,
language
verb,
comes
I,
from
the pronominals.
here.
My death, I, honey, leader, honey, calls out silently to other honey. The grid flows like aftermath. I didn't ask, says the
I am
universe.
your leader,
And death says I may have asked,
says the
but I
language,
can't
or
be.
I,
Dead
the
don't die, then you have
quintillionth
speaking
and
origin.
first
That you think of
I,
as grid. Never been such
the
a part of
verb
speech
I,
is to join us in mentality.
the
I am
noun,
sweetest, Samson.
the
Do I
pronominals.
destroy
My
yours?
death, I, honey, leader, honey, calls out silently to other honey, the grid.
Honey, leader, honey, uncarved
I
again with
didn't
phantom
ask,
pain.
says the
Today's my birthday.
universe,
Do I still remember everything?
to be
But it's my
born.
day, he says. I'm finally reborn, says honey. That's
And
an
death
aside.
says I may have asked to die, but I can't, and we,
Unnamed shapes call out that
the
we can know
dead,
everything
don't
to see now
die.
inside the words we catch hold of. We have never heard of governance. I tell us, I, the leader of the Samson who judged us sad and inept, trivial, washed up, smothered souls groping. Will you have to
Now
follow me past the store of
we're
love and
inside the
presence
words we'd catch hold of.
is pure like a torch. My hair is like gray fire. Inside this honey flow with a language.
The leader,
Finding its nearly unfashioned form, its
the Samson who judged us sad.
peace, the source of our plan to go on. Leader, my shell is empty, or it's all stone.
Leader, my shell is empty, or it's all stony, dark, green. I know what it is I say. I know where we are and are going. We are rearranging origin, its glyph, and its home.
We are calling you to us, I, and what was once fate, the body, but is now my own malleability. The light staring.
Something I would recognize, just
I want you to see it inside the beginning in our
who I am.
For the pre-beginning honey, I pulled down the ceiling so we wouldn't have dimensions or scale. Then there was pure action in doubt.
Honey and leader and left on the river, but I have the boat.
Or leadership, the honey songs beguiling you to start again.
We are the power we stand in, pre-power, the whole thing.
Before the shell, body, honey, power, wouldn't you like to act
Before the shell, body, honey, power, wouldn't you like to act now for the sake of action, not knowing why?
Arrange reality a certain way, that's all. With the hands of one of my bodies coincident in me. All night,
Last night, you were with me because I was broken and good.
ready, everyone, everything here inside the connection. Last night you were with me
And you
because I was
say,
broken and good. And you say you are with me because
you are
I've
with
got
me
enough honey for you.
because
Matter or mentality become
I've got
words
enough
for
honey
language
for you.
or stillness. We are forming entities for each other. Here in the primal blast.
Here in the primal blast, moltenness we have arrived at.
Ready for the mind or dream that acts.
I birth new forms, hopeless and free. Any rock. Any rock has a new name, and I have one too, honey, leader, honey.
Judged or been taught. We are making what we are, just that.
What shall we do together? with these new minds and have accepted. Honey, leader, haven't judged or been taught. We are making what we are, just that.
Now please welcome Steve Levine.
Hello. Hello. There was a time about 300 years ago, maybe. No, actually, it was the time that Eileen mentioned, Alice's workshop in that room, where I met all my contemporaries, lifelong friends, poets, the apartment on St. Mark's Place, dropping by. Just everything here in the East Village. That time, Alice was instrumental in my understanding of what it means to be a poet in this world. That's no small thing. Tonight I'm going to read a short poem of Alice's from this book, When I Was Alive, and follow it with a shorter poem of my own, which I wrote when I sat in one day at one of Alice's workshops. And also, on the topic of Alice being funny, I'm going to share with you her inscription in this book. For Steve Levine, the only man I've ever loved. Your Alice. February 1st, 1980. It's funny now, but I probably couldn't sleep for 3 days. Okay. Somebody's song from Shakespeare. Number me, girls. I'm sorry, I'll start over. Number me, girls, among things as they really are. Comfort me, girls. I'd be transparent and fair. But evil means life, and I've never wanted to die. Immortality's the fact of on earth and in your eyes. It's beautiful. For Alice, I am going to sit here for about 1 minute, dedicated to you, the air, all soft breezes, lost in the lofty green branches. Thanks.
Thanks, Steve. I'm going to just say this one thing before I introduce Eleni, which is that I was sitting on the floor in our New York apartment when Ted was still alive once, and he came out into the living room, and Mom was sitting there talking with Tom Carey, and I just remember that my dad was naked, and he stood up on a chair to grab a book, brought the book down, looked out across the room and said, "Anselm is a cunt." And I just kind of heard that and let it pass through me, and I didn't know what to think about that. I wasn't supposed to know what that word meant, but I did. Or thought I did. And then years later, I remembered that, and I said, "Hey, Mom, why did Dad call me a cunt that day when I was 8? And she laughed, and she said, No. He was talking about Anselm Hollow. Well, it's named after. We had this game that we played where we just decided over the period of days whether or not we categorized all of our friends into prick or cunt as categories. And that was the game, and he had just figured Anselm's category out, so he had to say it, and so that's it. Sorry, Eleni. Please welcome Eleni Sikelianos.
I'm so glad you got to get that clarified, Anselm. And I just realized, I wrote a little something to say, but I just realized I wanted to tell you all the last piece of gossip Alice told me. Because I tried to write about it for the Brooklyn Rail, but I was told it was not fact-checkable. And that was maybe the French designer Agnès B was going to use some of her poetry on the window. She was very excited about that. And then she was more excited about the fact that maybe Gregory Corso had an affair with Agnès B. So now you know how I wanted that Brooklyn Rail piece to end. So I met Alice nearly 4 decades ago. I hadn't written more than a handful of poems. I'd barely heard of O'Hare or Williams, and suddenly there she was before me, weeping while reading Asphodel, That Greeny Flower. And that moment I've been thinking about for almost 40 years, and it's been very instructive to me. It's core to how I think about poetry. Alice, along with a couple of other poets, became my mama poets. They raised me. And a few years after that first workshop with her in Europa in 1989, we were both living in Paris, and we met weekly for lunches where the transmission continued. She was working on Mysteries of Small Houses, and I was working on what would become my second book, Earliest Worlds. There's really no poetry pre-Alice for me. And 36 years later, my sense of the livingness of the poem is totally entangled in her body of work and in her person. Just as she claimed her progenitor lineage and blazed her own, we now carry Notley DNA in our poetry bodies. She taught me not how to trust the world, because that would be ridiculous, but how to trust poetry, that poetry was the thing you trusted. To trust the poem, not to reorder words, but to do something more profound and radical and necessary, which is to reorder reality. And I'm gonna read from one of my favorite books of hers, Close to Me and Closer, The Language of Heaven, which was in a double volume with the wonderful poem Des Amers that came out in 1995 from O Book. So I'm gonna read a poem from that, and then I'll read a poem, or actually I was inspired by Eileen to read what I wrote when I heard she died. So in Close to Me and Closer, the poet and her dead father speak back and forth. Here is a word, trust. It spells a ring around a patch of grass, a fence, or is it a fire? The fire doesn't spread outside its little ring, which I stand within. I had to trust it, and now trust its apples. It has burned away and left in ashes apples, its own color, fire apples. If I eat one, will I turn to fire? I must trust fire, eat an apple. And when I start to burn, I am anything burning. The universe burns, God burns, angels burn, the dead burn. Is the word trust or the word burn? The word is inside the tiniest bit of white flesh of the apple is a flame. There are heavenly elements manufactured as if from pain, or is it flame? Trust it, trust it. I don't want anything from you, but I do want everything. Your words I want close to the book, open over my open, broken rib like a tent flower heart, a black dahlia bleeding, a love. You, poet mama, taught me to cry for poems. To be in them like that, not made things, but things living for me to enter, to live. I want you, like words, to leave this world freely. You know how. Follow the quiet yesterday, hier, light. You are the person to not undo the hierarchies. You live past them. You redo more than words. You do reality what we need, the best reality. You make it, you're making it still as you fly off with the dead. What things can I show you that you don't already know?
Please welcome Joel Lewis.
I really owe much to Alice for my writing, and I was sitting here thinking Anselm and Eddie, bringing candy to Anselm and Eddie at 101 St. Mark's. I would visit on Wednesdays before a reading and hang out with them and talk poetry, and my little piece is about taking a workshop with Alice. Attending Alice Notley's year-long workshop conducted during the 79-80 season of the Poetry Project was one of the smartest moves I made as a young poet. I had only taken up the sullen art a couple of years before, and Alice's workshop went far beyond what I experienced by those conducted by well-meaning local poets on the other side of the Hudson where I resided. Those classes were typical of the period, workshopping poems, with the neo-romantic lyric poem as the model we should aim for. Alice rejected that common period model. The goal was to develop a regular writing practice, ranging from her giving first lines to begin our poems to the copying of overheard conversations. Alice felt that without this writing self, you were at risk of shutting down when some sort of emotional calamity surfaced. I could get with that. Just at the start of the workshop, I had a huge blowout with my best friend over a woman, what else? And that cut me off from a close community of fellow lefties. I felt terribly isolated, and Alice's Friday workshop was my week's high point. I don't think I missed a class. The workshop was held at the 3rd Street Music School due to the disastrous fire at the St. Mark's Church. Like all the workshops at the project at that period, it was free, and all you had to do was show up. Who was in the class? I recall Danny Krakauer, Barbara Holland, Bill Kushner, and a bunch of the poets who lived at 437 East 12th Street, dubbed the Poetry Fortress. Alice would give out in-class assignments, like a list of 10 disparate words, and asking her students to make a poem using the first word in the first line, the second word in the second line, and so forth, until one got to the end of the list. When I asked Susie Timmons what she remembered about the workshop, she vividly recalled an exercise where Alice handed out pages from a book about Antarctic explorer Ernest Shackleton and asked the class to make something from it. Alice also brought in works of poets important to her. I remember her learning about Jimmy Schuyler, John Wiener's, Edwin Denby for the first time, and a particular favorite was her Philip Whalen, which she often talked about through that class, so much so that when his collected poems was remaindered at Strand Books for $1 a copy, I bought 10 and gave them out to my Jersey poet friends, much like a Jehovah's Witness handing out the Watchtower, and sadly with similar results. Years later, when I began to teach poetry workshops, I found myself using many of Alice's prompts and strategies, and I was even able to bring Alice to read her work at a long-running workshop I was holding in an apartment on the Upper West Side. I could barely get through the introduction as I was a bit overcome by the dynamics of the situation. Alice gave a great reading and patiently answered questions from my group. And when she was leaving, she told me something that let me know that I'd been paying attention to that long ago Friday night workshop. Joel, your students seem to respect you. Thanks.
Next up, we have Simon Schuchat.
I want to thank Anselm and Edmund for letting me participate in this. I first met Alice in 1970 when I was 15 years old, and Michael Lally, who had been her classmate at Iowa, brought her and Ted to read at Trinity College in Washington, where Michael was teaching. And as I told Anselm a little while ago, I don't remember what Ted read, but I do remember some of the things that Alice read, which shows how powerful impression she made on me. Over the next 10 years, I was lucky enough to be living in the same city as her, first in Chicago and then in New York for most of the time. So that's when I had the most to do with her and saw her the most. I was in the same workshop that Eileen mentioned, and spent much time at 101 St. Mark's Place, and before that spent a lot of time at the house on Diversey in Chicago, and then the second one after they came back from England on Waveland. I remember Alice introducing me to Pernod, and I also remember Alice being very excited having seen That's Entertainment. This is on Waveland. And then after I left New York and did other things, I would occasionally go through Paris, and I would see her then. And it's hard for me to believe that she's not going to be there the next time I go there to see her. But all this time she was writing these incredible poems. In Chicago, I remember in particular a lot of poems about the experience of being pregnant and being a mother that I'm probably unaware of them, but I don't think anyone ever wrote that in English before Alice and brought that experience into literature, into poetry. When I would see her in Paris, I would occasionally bring her little notebooks that she could write in, but I don't know what she actually wrote in those notebooks. So I want to read a poem. I think it's in When I Was Alive, but it may be in another early volume. It's a little sentimental, but I don't think Alice ever fled from sentimentality. But actually, before I read that, the other thing to say is that whenever I've written something, what Alice would think of it has always been in my mind. That's someone who I would like to live up to whatever expectations she might have for something I might write. So this is called Sonnet. The late Gracie Allen was a very lucid comedienne, especially in the way that lucid means shining and bright. What her husband George Burns called her illogical logic made a halo around our syntax and ourselves as we laughed. George Burns most often was her artful, inconspicuous straight man. He could move people around the stage, construct skits and scenes, write and gather jokes. They were married as long as ordinary magic would allow, 38 years, until Gracie Allen's death. In her 50s, Gracie Allen developed a heart condition. She would call George Burns when her heart felt funny and fluttered. He'd give her a pill, and they'd hold each other until the palpitations stopped. Just a few minutes. Many times and many pills. As magic fills, then fulfilled must leave a space, one day Gracie Allen's heart fluttered and hurt and stopped. George Burns said unbelievingly to the doctor, "But I still have some of the pills." Thank you.
And now please welcome Sandy Flitterman.
I'm so not used to this. Am I talking loud enough? Okay. Ooh, Jesus. I've lectured about feminist film theory like all over the world, and I've had classes with hundreds of students. This is driving me crazy. I'm really uncomfortable. Okay, for one thing, I'm usually known as Joel's wife, and I actually appreciate that they left off the Lewis-Lewis part of my name, because I go by Sandy Flitterman Lewis. But here, I'm very happy to be Sandy Flitterman. And my relation with Alice has been so hard, because she's always with me, and I'm not part of the poetry world, although I'm part of her world and she's part of mine. And the meetings in Paris were the most important to me. Paris is a very special and conflicted place for me. I do a lot of research there. I discover unwanted films, and Alice has been part of those discoveries just by being herself. So first there's thoughts about Alice, then a couple of haiku that I was inspired to write, and then a joke, okay? Now the thing is, as I was trying to figure out what I was going to talk about and how I was going to say, I walked around and tried out different phrases. This is going to work, is that going to work? And of course, none of them worked. But the whole idea was it reminded me of this Jewish joke that I used to tell my classes when I felt they were comfortable enough to hear the dirty word. There was a dirty word in there. So, first of all, she's got everything she needs. She's an artist. You don't look back. The words suddenly meant something to me. I mean, I remember them from college days and all that, and that stupid film where everybody, all the women I know, remembered their first loves and saw this idiot who portrayed Dylan, and strengthened by their memories, they loved the film until they started thinking about it, which is my experience too. But the phrases from Dylan, from old Dylan, my Dylan, keep in my mind now. I have my own playlist. I don't know how to do the technology, but these songs just pop up in my head at random, and some of them are very fulfilling, and others make sense now when they didn't before. Okay, so Paris. Well, first of all, we had two weddings 39 years ago. And one was in the garden in Hillsdale, and it was most of my sort of friends and Joel's friends, and there was some music but no dancing. And then there was the Jewish wedding for Joel's parents and his relatives, and none of my family managed to make it there. So I was like the bride, welcomed into the family. We only had a few people, friends there, and Alice was one of them. And she brought a jar of polished stones that Anselm and Eddie had made for us as a gift, so that I figured all three of them were at this wedding. And then I would, when she was in Paris, Joel said, go see Alice, and I thought, ooh, that's kind of creepy, scary, because I'm not of the poetry world. But then I realized I wasn't making a pilgrimage, I was just seeing a friend. And that was what sort of fueled our conversations. But the other thing is that Joel and I went to Paris once and met Alice and Doug, and we had coffee at a place across the street. Was a very sort of old-style French confiserie, patisserie, and they thought it was a movie set because it was always closed, but they were always closed for lunch. It was an actual functioning store with lots of delights in it, and an exterior that's now filmed in all the films that have pretend Paris backgrounds. So what did I want to say? So Doug had me deliver something at the English Institute where he taught. And it was on a film that's very close to me called La Maternelle, which means nursery school, and is about love of children.
And it's not sentimental, it's actually practical, because Jean-Benoît Lévy, who was one of the directors, had written a whole book about the philosophy of teaching and love in teaching. And he made 300 documentaries that had to be Aryanized before he and his family moved to New York to start the film program at the New School with all the other refugees, exiles. And in sort of discovering this film, which was very hard to sort of find, and there are versions of it at BFI and everything, I discovered the history of the Benoît Lévy family, and I became friends with Liliane, his granddaughter, who told me lots of things that weren't in any of the texts. So Liliane, who's no longer alive, and Alice, who is now no longer alive, merge in my consciousness as two of my mentors and friends. So this is a kind of different kind of friendship, because I idolized them, but I also felt kind of equal to them. So the first, let's see if I can do this right. And I say unassuming and welcoming, which were part of her relation to me, which I felt was really sort of important, because who I was in Paris was very different from who I was at Rutgers and who I am now. So anyway, so the first haiku is Alice Notley. Our Jewish wedding, white shirt, black skirt, jar of rocks, you always guide me. And the second one is Brasserie. The lights went out at the Terminus Nord while Alice just beamed in her way. That's actually true. We were having dinner there, big sort of fancy cafe, and the lights went out. Everything went out. And Alice, just serene and calm, and the lights went back on. No explanation for it, but now I know it was God. But anyway, aside from that, in retrospect, often these things come back. And then poetry, semblable et sûr, tu écris toujours sans peur, la femme qui vit seule, the woman who lives alone, which Alice told me is what her neighbors called her, and then she laughed, her usual laugh. And I just always thought of that, because the irony of it, the sense of irony, and in French, it was so empowering. It was just this kind of, little phrase. So that's a couple more, and then the joke. Let's see, Paris Memories. Doug's Whisper Louise, à la mère de famille, épicerie fine. Okay, so that's the pâtisserie that looked like a movie set. Doug's book, Whisper Louise, came out, and then he died, so he didn't have a chance to go around and talk to people about it. But I'm finding out now that a lot of people finish a lifetime book, and then they're not there to, not promote it, but to have discussions, because promotion is another whole other can of worms. Okay, so, and then just a few movie haikus. Now, Voyager. What shall I call you? Just call me a friend, said Charlotte. Moon and stars hold two. If you know the film, you'll get that. The other one is, The Diary of Anne Frank. I dream of Margot, not of her little sister, but marketing wins. That's the other thing. Auschwitz and After. Charlotte Delbo's laughter. Charlotte Delbo laughs. Her companions are specters, a call to survive. And that's, I think, pretty much what Alice taught me. And I'm just going to go through. History. Occupation France. Children picked up off the streets. It's here already. It's not working. Oh, there, it's back. Hey, how weird. Okay, so you could just imagine what I would have said that you can't hear, and then we pick up the mic. I do literature. Paul Celan, poet. Poetry can save the world. Jean Felstiner, Jew. Okay, so the joke is an out-of-work aging actor is called by his agent, and he says, the agent says, we have a role for you, but it's really a little complicated. It's one line, and it's over in Boston, so he starts figuring out. The line is, hark is that a cannon I hear. I hope nobody's heard this. Okay. Hark is that a cannon I hear. So he starts thinking, hark, is that a cannon I hear? Or he goes back and he says, hark is that a cannon I hear. And he repeats different versions of the line as preparation. And he does this when he gets into a cab, and the cab driver says, "What are you saying?" He says, "I'm going over my lines." And then he gets to the airport, gets on the plane is late. He has no time to change into his costume. It's a young repertory theater. They push him onto the stage. He's like, it's a colonial kind of thing. And all of a sudden he hears a loud boom, and he goes, "What the fuck was that?"
Thank you, Sandy. Please welcome Bob Holman.
So I met Alice in a pool hall in Chicago with a lot of people who are here, and then Alice and Ted moved to New York, and everybody else did too. So I remember when I heard of Alice's death, that we were standing around Bernadette's tree right out there. It was the day of placing the marker in front of Bernie's tree, and the word came about Alice. So connected. I too was in the workshop, and I too became a teacher of poetry, and one of the books that I would always teach is The Descent of Alette. In this room right here, last January 20th, the Descent of Alette was read by 100 people, poets, writers, and musicians played throughout. That was the way we were dealing with the absurdity that was going on down south of here. Was to have our own celebration with our hero, who would descend not like Dante into hell, but into the subway, where her mission was to kill the tyrant. So right now I'm going to read page 104, my favorite section, because this really tells with the students whether or not they're going to be able to get through the class. Alice, or that's Alette, is with the owl. The mouse's face had much beauty in its stillness. Its pink front paws touched each other. Its long pink tail hung down. There was an air of gravity all about its weak body. The owl laid it down on the table before me and settled next to it. "We shall eat now," he said. "I can't eat a mouse," I said. "I don't mind if you eat it, but I can't." "You are carnivorous. Try this flesh," he said, his yellow eyes relentlessly staring at me. "It is too freshly killed," I said. "My food is killed by others." But he only kept on staring. Everything I was saying was naked and wrong. I don't eat my own prey. I mean, I don't have prey, though I eat meat. Perhaps I shouldn't. I shouldn't. Of course, all of the world feeds on itself, doesn't it? I mean, one form of life or another, it's somehow part of our unity, our union, isn't it? He still stared at me. Of course there are rules, and I can't kill. Oh, I'm just babbling. Will you eat some? Yes, I whispered, for I now knew I must. I'll give you just a small bit, he said, and with his beak he quickly cut off a leg and a thigh. Put it in your mouth and chew for as long as you can. Swallow what you can. Spit the rest out. I thrust it in my mouth and began to chew. Before I could taste it, its hair and blood, bone and claw, then it tasted, the words came to me, like myself. Like myself. Are you crying for the mouse? He said. The mouse's life takes care of it. The life takes care of the mouse. In our case, that's what happens. I'm crying, I said, because I was so hungry. Do you want more? No, it's enough. Then he swallowed the rest of the mouse whole before my eyes, and I spat out what was left of mine.
Please welcome Leanne Brown.
Thank you for being here, everybody. I'm going to read just a few points from this piece I wrote in the Brooklyn Rail as well. I called it something like Lyric Disjunct Alice Palace. I think there was more to it than that, but I met Alice in 1987 when I first moved to New York, right out of college, and she was doing workshops, but at Sheila Allison's house in Brooklyn, not at the project anymore, but she invited me to come along with her, and I remember going with her to the 2nd Avenue subway station and sitting there. I mean, just got to New York, and I was not used to rats being in the subway, and she was talking about this poem she was writing called The Descent of Alette, and we were sitting there in the subway, so it was just a great transmission that life goes into poetry in a very strange way. So read poetry and imagine yourself writing it. I remember her saying in a public address in her casually Vatic distillate way. And that, in a nutshell, is what we all poets do. Her books can lend themselves to a generous bibliomancy. I'd even say a rhapsodomancy, a generative divination by means of poetry. I mean, she is that good. That surprising, that outrageous. Time and time again after reading Alice, I hear poets say, I never knew you could do that in a poem. So just open up disobedience. Take a look. Alice conjures book magic. As with bibliomancers of the past, we open a book like the Bible or Virgil or Kabir to concentrate on a question or issue at random, and then read the first passage that catches our eye, especially during times of personal or societal crisis. We can do that with Alice. That which we listen to makes us sing. Each time I turn to my stack of Alice books, I piece together new visceral and neural networks and let my eye land on a new line. I arc into a new connection. We are companion animals. So I did a bibliomancy to see what I should read tonight, and this is dedicated to all the young people doing the expansive gender exploration and helping us all. This is written, 1981, 80-some. How Spring Comes, the first book I had of Alice's, and I opened to page 38. So, sir, you'll disguise me as a boy, so I can freely move until I find out what I am must be, as my only love, my fellow child brother now dead to me, who else be but he? For he was, we were certainly me. So I'll go to the park in my jeans and tea as he. I trust your character with its sky of blue and clouds and leaves to find me the man I will sing me to. For I want to be found out as she. How funny that is. Want everyone to find out my nipples through the white, cheap cotton shirt. So, sir, your light will make my breasts not show, then show, as you will, you need to know, sir. So I meet an older guy, like fall in love with him. He's got a house, an extra mattress, sometimes, and a few drug habits and drugs, and in his house is where they hang out. Would-bes and alreadys in the constellation of arts. He sits in his chair, see, and then he thinks of it, remembers he's in love with a lady painter, an extraordinary and new and well feminist type, and proud, talented, and hanging together, gluing, laying on summer colors, disguised jewels of Madonnas of love's colors. Often he remembers her when not talking, reading, listen to records, write a poem. He whom my secret soul must now love, sir. He has insisted of me that I attend her parties. She's sworn to see and love only women till she ceases to mourn her first 30 years of mother and father and men and understands who she is. So I'm to attend her. It's good for me, he says. She so queen, talented. I'm a kid, would-be painter. I'm a contact with her. He's incidentally, passionately in love with. I'm his go-between, assessor of situation. Why does she mourn with her women so long? But why not discover her heart? But then I attend her parties, and right now she fancies women. And I'm become this boyish woman, boy, woman, little girl, butch. Oh, it's me, she fancies. How funny. I'm inclined he might discover he loves me at some point when I have enough presence, assurance, and true stature as self to take off my t-shirt. And then aside from what I have to do with myself, shit, do I have to find someone to occupy her? For she'd hate me for spurning her whom I do admire, and more, he'd hate me too for being loved by her. I need my boy look-alike, the myself I can't really be, but then she really loves that stubborn she who refuses to cease to mourn her lost self. And he who has got to get addicted to me, who am his own counsel and friend and page girl companions and sing songs to him when he's sad. I'm his daily girl voice, though he thinks I'm kind of neuter, though almost sexy. And I want to read just 3 more lines at the top of the page. I'll get a tangerine in half. I'll cut a tangerine in half and stick them under my shirt. Well, while you're doing that, I think I'll get a teensy bit high and read some Dante. That does it. Goodbye. See you tomorrow.
And now please welcome Hoa Nguyen.
I'm excited to read from Alice's last book, or at least the last book that we have so far. From being reflected on, a memoir in verse of 17 years, 2000 to 2017, which she inscribed to myself and Dale last year when we read with her at Duke in Durham, and where we had the privilege of having dinner with her, where she held Nathaniel Mackey's hand until she said, "My wine is getting warm. I need to let go of your hand." For Dale and Hoa, she inscribes it, on reflection, how long it has been knowing you, a pleasure. After I read the poem on being reflected upon, I dreamt the lines. The poem I read was The Answer is Awe, which I'll be sharing with you. I dreamt the lines, the three sage women said, Ottawa. And so I wonder if the answer is also awe. And as I prepared for this memorial for Alice, a person who I considered my chosen family, poetry family, a page mother, I recalled how we had also spent time together in Ottawa, Ontario, and she asked me to read her tarot cards, asking the tarot something like, tell me about the first or old language, or maybe the question was, what is the first language? And it was an impossible question. It seemed, at least to me, it seemed an impossible question for the tarot deck. I used the mythic deck, which illustrates the tarot with reference and images drawn from Greek myth. And for Alice's question, it produced the card Ace of Swords, a card that can be seen as the flaming sword of the mind, an emblem for writing, memory, truth, vision, and insight. And in the mythic deck, the figure who wields the sword of truth is Athena, the reluctant warrior, the god of bold action and justice, whose animal familiar is the owl. The answer is awe. Dream old payphone ringing in hospital. I pick up receiver, voice says, the answer is awe. Still don't know what to do with it. Last September, right before I was diagnosed, and the dream is still irritating. I have a checkup Friday. I'm working on the old language again. Does do if it is there nothing or anything. Take the laundry out of the machine. That proves zilch. If the answer were awe, I would be burdened with awe. Infinity as a condition can't be some feeling. The old language is written all over and in me, but I'm not it. It's possible I do it. She brought her friends home with her this morning at 6 a.m. Hate her guts, as we used to say, jumble it, be the machine, and question all. But the cancer is so available, like so much isn't, good air and tranquility, space between sets of particles. The particular of this now shouldn't be spelled as what you think you know. I close my eyes, and hands put a slender crown on my head. You cannot, I can't restrain this passage of what is not a self into further display. I should awe you. Someone to convince that explanation must be dismantled. Syntax unravels, and the bits that orbit around other bits fall out of place. While the newer languages fell apart, the old one, golden, as my fillet began to spell awe. And I don't know what it means. I've never felt it, but perhaps you can. I don't like this arrangement. And then it's not named, the area near the heart where I was, they said, sick, but I knew that was caused by my allowing your troubles and guilt to be inserted within me, even as poet. This was the old language too, not as scapegoat, but as song. No one knows why they, the tones, work, or even the microtones. Trust them, the voice says. The old language, remember? I was handed it in the library, a book, but it isn't literacy. That's only one version. Tell me the rest of the stanza, proving that it's always within reach. Anything could be it. The people on the runway spelling letters gesturally so the plane can land at night. Somewhere else in the universe, a rock speaks it without effect. Or am I the one surviving speaker? But the original must be, in effect, always in place. Thank you.
We're entering the home stretch here. So it's good for me to also tell you we just added 15 more people to the lineup. Just people I see in the room who probably could have read. And then we're going to have an open mic. Please welcome Dale Smith.
Thanks for letting me be part of the open mic. I was thinking the old language. I was thinking of Scorpio. Simon Pettet brought up Scorpio. I was thinking of the season we're in. I remember Joanne Kiger, another Scorpio whose birthday is tonight, said to me one time, she read some poems of mine. She said, "I don't care what you think or feel. I want to know what's happening." I was like, yeah, that sounds right. And Alice always told us what was happening, which is what I feel like in the clan of Scorpio you get frequently from her. And also this idea of going to the old language. She once said, "Everything is immortal because there is no nowhere for something to become nothing in. I offer a future made of recombination like a collage, a pasting on of things by a massive regrouping of the dead and alive in order to begin again at this point, whatever you think this point is." She says in The Pines, and this is a kind of like a shamanic thing, I think, of Scorpio, like this idea that there's this thing with Alice, like ideas don't matter. It's like what's happening. And to me, what's happening, and I think in a lot of her work is what's happening is in the tone, in the voice, in the language, in the music, in the song. And there's a way in which she brings us home in the song to what matters in the world in a very old sense of the song, in the old sense of the language. And in The Pine, she says, "I'm going to find your soul. I'm going to find your soul." If you don't know the song, you don't know anything. I ride the exactitudes of speech, the tune in words alone. And I've always loved that about Alice, that she's brought it down to the song, the tune, the word, that the idea is always embedded in the action and in the mobility of the movement of the moment in her work. And I'll just end with this poem. It's from The House Gone in the Speak Angel series that is such a tremendous body of work. And I'm going to have to put my glasses on so I can see this. The most relevant sentence states that this is where you are. No one cares who you are, though you are unique, and later some will care, but then perhaps cease to care again. Anyone is thinking anything, and the voice that binds us, that travels from one to one, saying virtually nothing. I am your leader because I'm defining this condition. You don't, I repeat, you don't feel bad at this point. This is point zero for the universe, the whole thing we emerged from. Here, someone said an explosion of distress, but you don't have to remember that. When you were born, later try to remember standing here, and after you are dead, for at this point you have done nothing. Do you really want to act? But I've said you're already corrupt because you remember your futures. Try only to remember here, right now. Try only to remember here, become in beauty. There is no instruction, for it will all speak. Thank you.
Joseph Carey. Please welcome Joseph Carey.
Hey, what's up? Oh, thank you. Awesome. For Alice. Life goes on where there's living to be done. You introduced my parents to each other. Please ask my dad if there's any more of his work to be finished. Tell Anselm and Eddie what he says. Now we all exist together in a different way. Your poetry taking on new meaning. It gives us clues about what it was like to be you, because we can't ask for the answers anymore. The beauty of your writing creates faith that anyone can fiercely dance these light waves. If you deeply feel a thing, then sincerely try to accurately describe what it was, or is, if you continue to feel it day by day. You took these feelings and gave them sound and color. No one wrestled with words like you. Your contented smile could border on a contentious snarl if your sparring partner slipped a real hit in, your laugh becoming a war cry. The terms of your magic are certain. You moved like a curtain by the open window. Your eyes like the doors to a soul. Only true believers dare grab the handle. Fewer still possessed a key. My memory of you is in paint. It cascades across a blank page, cavorting at treetop level on the fingertips of wind that tickle it down St. Mark's Place, east towards Tompkins Square Park and the river. You didn't leave us here. You're helping prepare there. Your physical absence like a piece of fruit, one day before it's perfectly ripe. Thank you.
You ready? Please welcome Nick Sturm.
Yeah, this shirt has Alice on it. Phonograph Editions, who published early works and the Speak Angel series, made this, and if you'd like to buy one, you can. And it'll support them publishing more of Alice's work in the future. Needles, California. She acts like she knows what she's talking about, but she's just butting in and staying. That's how she landed you, however briefly, is this prosody. The water's off, could be a while, stuffed with taco chips and picante sauce. I think that's another she's a more benign, but one just the same. This is starting to sound like current prose tales. Ugh, I liked it better, lyrical and smitten, but angry is enough when that's there, here. She'll take what you love most, poetry, and tell you you're worthless because it's boring unless you, 6 lines crossed out. This was not getting good. All us G.I. Joes lying down 7 p.m. in the desert. I can't get a simple rant off the ground. She just wants you to do right for love and a little comfort. I want you to be a cold-hearted poet with me. That's an unpublished poem by Alice, and I have these broadsides of it. If you'd like one before you go, please take one. I want to thank the Poetry Project for tonight, and actually to thank the entire history of the Poetry Project, if one can do such a thing, because Alice's life and poetry are bound up in this space. In 1970, when her and Ted were temporarily split up and she was living in an apartment on East 12th, Rudy Burkhart took a series of photographs of Alice outside St. Mark's on the corner of 2nd Avenue and East 10th. She was 25 years old, no books published, and already completely herself, completely poetry. Through all of this institution's transformations, the readings and workshops and crises and friendships, the project has also been completely poetry. Like Alice, this is rare in a way it is hard to describe. I was fortunate to know and love Alice for the last decade of her life, and I'm glad for us to continue to know and grieve her together. And I'm glad for her now in matterless form. She loved form. To be in that form with Ted and with Doug, where she was always already in her poems, like Spicer and Dante and Pete Rose's Drugs and the entire history of folk music, completely jade static poetry. To adapt what Kenneth Koch said about Ted Berrigan here 42 years ago, poetry, what poets write, and what they think about poetry will be full of Alice for a long time. Inside this, there are more things that Alice said. What have you learned from Alice Notley? I'm going to call it, there's something like Alice's apartment ethics, a practice of not daily life, but rituals for smuggling, surviving, being a post-harmony kind of person. One needs to appear unmetaphorically in the doorway, milk with red cap, preferably a blue chair, crosswords, pain goes wherever. Are you on pills? No. Do you want one? And dust, the ability to step into the bathroom and become thoughtful in a compound word kind of way, a few pieces, at least, of okay cutlery. Doug and I decided there were good spoons and bad spoons. This, she says, is a good spoon. I'm realizing what's happening is the last 25 years. I bought 3 croissants and some orange juice. See you. Hi, Nick. I'm trying to text you now. I'm alive. You should rest. But really, the apartment isn't Alice's. No, it is her apartment, but there's a string of apartments connected by books, the library she shares with her sons beyond owning anything, because words aren't language, a good spoon. I can't believe blank didn't think I was a formalist. That's so stupid. I was completely, she says, unprepared for her to die. I become familiar with Aunt Mohi, learn there's a Needles sort of way to say anything, pickles with a giggle, or why don't you fucking kill yourself? The latter in the voice of Mysteries of Small Houses and reserved for her appliances, mostly coffee maker, the former, pickles. Other things one hears in Alice's apartment. You are or are not a sourpuss, jack-off, country slut, house critic. You're out to lunch. I just stopped being interested in that. You're changing your destiny. Bernadette had the worst memory. That's why she had to write memory. You can't leave me like that. Did I cry? You did. I always cry, reading that. I learn that Alice will read the Wikipedia page for a type of rock out loud to me. I learn I'm the worst housekeeper. I learn I am the first person seeing these postcards. I always knew you were. I learn she is dreaming. There was this, she says, place setting we needed to include in the archive. And my sister was wearing a Spanish skirt of mine that she had to take off so we could include it. She was in Spain and in my dream, another dream about absorbing folders of typescripts, her own, into her body. They were so soft, she says. I learned the way, she says, Edwin and Rudy, like black and gold music, cursive. She invents a word for my sensibility, Virgoid, which has to do with the fact that I'm organizing her archive into boxes in her apartment where somehow all these things still exist. I thought I was supposed to, she says, keep a record because no woman poet had kept such a record. I wanted to have this record of continuous practice, and I didn't trust my own judgment as to what was good, which has proven true. At night, I drink wine and clean her kitchen. She texts me the next morning, I bought some strange pastries. I learned she prefers apple pastries, though regardless of fruit type or form, what's most important is that they are cut to share evenly. Alice is judicious about the fairness of pastries. In her papers, we find her first poem, 4th grade, I like to write. I like to write. Writing is lots of fun. I could write all night if I tried. I would even write about the sun. I'd write, and I'd write, and I'd write all night. I wouldn't have time to run. All I do would be to write. Writing is lots of fun. "70 years later, I learned she is writing a book called The Old Language. I learned there is sometimes a vortex between the bed and tchotchke cabinet. I learned she is lonely sometimes, petty, inflexible, jade static, like any friend might be. In her papers, we find a paper written in 1963 high school about Walt Whitman. I have a basic irrational prejudice against Whitman, which has nothing to do with the quality of his poetry. It's all the fault of our literature book, which seems to scream, Walt Whitman celebrates the common and ordinary, therefore he is great. People make such a fetish out of the common and ordinary, I suppose because most of them are common people living ordinary lives who have to justify their existence some way. But must we necessarily label the common great? Is there some innate virtue in the ordinary? I don't want to be common and ordinary. I don't want to achieve the common and ordinary. I resent people who label the common and ordinary the summum bonum of life. Reading this out loud to her, she says, I was always being myself. Her grade, A-. I learned the sandwiches at Union are the best. I learned the stars I love remain unkilled. After days of trying, I learn I cannot distinguish the bad spoons and good. Bad and good, I unlearn. In the days I am writing this poem, I learn that Maddie dies. I cry for our friends who live and die caring about a book, the old language, any book, having fun, because words aren't good or bad, they are not myself. I get FaceTimed by Godfrey in the hospital. I say, we need you, John. He says, I need shit too. His beard looks really, really good. I learn Alice's last email to me will be a picture of a playlist, probably illegible, of folk songs written in her journal next to that little R2-D2. Ask me, and I will share it with you too. Gladly I overhear what is the soul of her singing jade static, she says, because of the way I feel close to you. Maddie was a fucking great dude. I learned this. It wasn't hard. Alice was a post-ruthless musical insister who loved mystery, words, justice, gossip, her stories about having become this way by singing and remaining unkilled. I learned this. It was not hard. You may be inventing something, she says, an occupation that's more complex than librarian or historian or curator or critic. Somehow it's all those things and involves inner freedom of thought and movement. She was writing to me in the language of apartment ethics, thin, black, and gold air, an intricate ship we signed up for, that single actions do not exist, jade static, and no word gets lost. It was not hard. You built your ship of death, an occupation that's more complex. We all needed it. Every word, you will, and never. Not myself. Gut feeling, symphonic. I'll always be learning this sweetly from Alice Notley. You're changing your destiny. I have to go now.
Please welcome Jason Merritt to the Poetry Project.
Incidentally, if you find yourself missing the sound of Alice Notley's laughter, if you can get a belly laugh out of Eddie, it's pretty close. Born in eclipse no one could predict, over a planet no one could depict, not a bird nor a hound, no one makes a sound. The painting of airs hanging downtown, don't you descend yet, let. I was a soldier until I disappeared, dying forever to live in museums. Singers and corpses, the substance of darkness. Deep in the garbage, she hums like a motor. But don't you descend yet, let. People get lonely, pieces of people scratching a living right out of their skin. Get ready for nothing, keep ahead of the end. You're such a treasure, you had to be buried. Heart is a muscle that beats in your head. It takes a village to raise the dead. The tyrants are tired, but we ain't licked them yet. So don't you descend yet, let. Don't you descend.
I'm listed next, but that's a mistake, and it's a mistake I made. I was going to read a poem that Anne Waldman asked me to read because she wanted to be here but couldn't, and I was going to read a prose piece that John Godfrey sent and asked me to read because he can't be here. John's piece is long and beautiful, and and funny. I don't think I could get through it, to be honest. It should be published. Anne's piece is published in the Brooklyn Rail. So, this is what's going to happen. Edmund's going to get up and read. Then we're going to show a few minutes of Melody London's film that is going to have Mom reading a couple poems, and she's going to be on the screen on the stage, and she's going to hit a 3 in your face, and that's going to be your Christmas present, and then we'll go. Please welcome my brother, Edmund Berrigan, my other brother.
All right. Oh, it's not that bad. It's not that late. It might be past my bedtime. One thing I wanted to say was the Poetry Project is going to be 60 years old next year. And I was thinking about what it would be like if it lasted another 60 years after that. Who would be here? And what would they need? And one of those things would be the thrilling, terrible silence of reading your poetry to a room full of people and having them just sit there listening. So, and that's what we're doing, so just keep doing what you're doing and come back when you can. Harris Schiff called me today and sent me a little piece, so I'm going to read that before I do what I do. Moonlight on Water to Ease You, 1976 to 1983. A great many of us poets spent our afternoons and evenings collaborating, gossiping, joking, and laughing in Alice and Ted's tiny apartment at 101 St. Mark's Place. To have two such brilliant, dedicated, hard-working poets together, husband and wife in the same little space, cross-pollinating and constantly writing new and better poems, was a portal through which fresh, evolving poetry entered our creative universe. We were drawn to the light of the great Notley Berrigan Love Fest and poetic duologue festooned with belly laughs and pointed irony, plus unique double genius memories and retorts, not to mention a buoyant, witty, irreverent song throughout, to wit, The Golden Seal. It tastes like ground up dead bodies. It makes you shit and cleans your pussy. It soothes your sore eyeballs and vanquishes your disgusting gum disease and your ringworm. It is the right hand of God, green and horrible, stamping his signature all over your nature to save your body from more further putrefaction than is good for you. Have a dose of it now, before your dick falls off and the rocks melt with the sun. From the vernacular herbal Alice Notley, 6/12/82. My favorite ever swear learned from Alice was, "Fuck your socks." Alice often worked on art projects while words flew between salon and bedroom. She hand-painted fans, fold-out fans, and fans on poles, gorgeous gifts for friends. She painted and wrote on a series of postcards. She constructed collages. All that while caring for her two young sons, Anselm and Edmund, brainstorming with her big young Ted, and day by day writing hundreds of little imagist poems. Alice made me a lovely painted fan to commemorate Ted's and my excellent adventure at Yankee Stadium that became the book called Yo-Yos with Money. She also gave me a hand-painted book of 8 poems with watercolor illustrations for Twelfth Night, 1978. I cherish those things as reminders of our beautiful youth. Ted encouraged a friendly competition. Alice and I gave a number of readings together in Hoboken, the East Village, and at St. Mark's. We showcased new work. Alice always won, according to Ted. The 70s in the East Village was just the greatest time for poets who knew Alice and Ted. Then and now, Alice was our star. Scholars can tell you about Alice's later epic works, the ones being read by hundreds of thousands of her fans. I can only say she was unique, and so were her shorter works. June, bushes of death, bushes of tears, great and in perfect condition. Alice Notley, 682. Alice of the epic poem, Alice of the watercolor, Mother Alice, Grandma Alice, Jokester Alice, Beautiful Alice, so clever, so funny. Alice, we miss you so. We, of course, called her Mom. Hi, Mom. Bye, Mom. This is a book called Sorrento. It's about a trip in 1981, not to Sorrento, but to Needles, California. I don't know why she called it Sorrento. It probably just seemed like a great idea at the time. So I'm just going to read some excerpts from this. August 24th, Monday. We drive from Bisbee to Needles. William Eastlake had said, "Needles, that's where everyone was so mean to you when you drove through before air conditioning." At Stuckey's outside of Tucson, I open an envelope marked rattlesnake eggs, which contains a sort of noisy rubber band. At Gila Bend, suddenly we're in the oven, and Anselm is passingly sick. We suffer all the way home to Needles, through Quartzsite, Parker, Earp, Vidal, then we're home. Albert and Kathy and Cassie and little Al come over. Ted and I go to sleep on the waterbed, the boys in the painting room. Tomorrow, my mother will get up and go to work at Needles Auto Supply. Tuesday, August 25. It's a hard life sleeping on the waterbed. Ted is desolate. Me and kids will go swimming. Later, we all go to dinner at Kathy and Albert's and watch Honeysuckle Rose on Al's fancy TV setup. The kids catch 15 toads in a wastepaper basket. August 26, Wednesday. Read Blind Raftery. It was 114 degrees today. We went to the river again, a different beach. Cassie saw a catfish. Mother and I made tacos for everyone, and Kathy gave Anselm and Edmund haircuts. I played the piano a little. Now that Grandma is dead, the piano is available again. Edmund lately calls Grandma's death when great-grandma went up with Grandpa, my dad. He doesn't like the idea of going down, i.e. burial. What happened to Grandma's bed? There's a lovely amaryllis blooming in the backyard. I'm 35. I was 33 the last time I was here. Thursday, 27 August. Ted calls kids outside from out of bed, 10 or 11 p.m. A big hot wind is there and an attempt to rain, about 3 or 4 hard drops a minute. Ted is delighted. It is alternately the greatest thing and the funniest thing he's ever seen. The kids are sleepy and a little puzzled. You can see half the constellations, too. Ted says, "If the wind were blowing this hard in Providence, all the buildings would fall down. It's the greatest thing I've ever seen." September 1, Tuesday. Ted is playing records, the Dave Clark 5 and Finian's Rainbow. The dog got washed and clipped and beribboned. Kate is here, guzzling beer this mid-afternoon. Later, 2 single-layer roses are blooming in the backyard. Edmund wants me to write a poem called Meow in My Heart. Ted and Kate are watching A Poppy is Also a Flower Too. This afternoon, we saw Fred across the street loading barrels of honey into a Sue Bee honey truck. Wednesday, 2 September. Last night, Kate looked at Anselm's hair and scalp and said he had head lice. Ditto Edmund, and presumably me.
Ted slept with the distraught Anselm, and I slept with my Eddie, who kept putting his licy head against my face. He said in his sleep in a loud voice, 8 little singing monkeys and, a prairie dog. Today, everyone washed their hair with some icky kerosene and anisette stuff, and I washed endless bedding and clothes. Ted combed 3 lice out of his hair, 2 of them still alive and shaking their fists. Once Mother realized our lice were not really disgraceful, she laughed at all my jokes about them, but refused to tell anyone outside the family outright that we had them. She told her hairdresser that she thought she'd been exposed to head lice in Bisbee, etc. She and I went gambling tonight up at Bullhead City, won nothing, but had a terrific time. September 3, Thursday. Mother drove to Searchlight this afternoon to pick up some bottles of oxygen for the store. She was touchy and cranky all evening. At first I thought it was because of the lice, but now I think it's because today or tomorrow is her wedding anniversary. Poem. A naked lady bloomed yesterday and wilted today. Ted saw a bird that was a paper bag. This can't get off the ground, though. I'm too tired and low. I'd fly up the river to the one I love, but he's sulking in the next room because my mother yelled at him. Scorpio's taking up the whole horizon outside, all bright, and with that one sullen star, Antares. Sunday, 6 September. The boys went camping this morning with Albert and Kathy. I slept and dreamt some more and woke up and went shopping for jeans and things courtesy of Mother. Kate left for Albion this evening. I finished reading Kogan's Trade, went through several more trunks. In one trunk, the dress I wore the night Steve Dannenberg broke my heart, with considerable assistance from me, but I'm surprised I can remember his name. September 7th, Monday. Looked at pictures of my mother in cowboy chaps and etceteras, my father, his hand on a snow woman's breast, my mother with 2 stiffs in front of a typewriter store. Yesterday or day before, Ted said, I just got great insight into kid talk. Little Al said, Anselm, what do you have in your mouth? Anselm opened his mouth and said, candy, want to see it? Al said yes, and Anselm took it out of his mouth and showed it to him. Driving home tonight from the casinos, saw 2 coyotes and a hawk. Mother said she wished a flying saucer would land right now. Very pretty night. September 9, Wednesday. Last day in town. Isabel says everyone's gotten too old, and old age is terrible, Libby. She shows me some porcelain geese she's making. Says she never visits my mother because she thinks she's too tired to be visited. The kids and I and Kathy and kids and Jonna and kid go to river together for last time. The high temp of the day is 100 degrees. I don't swim much. After dinner, there's record playing and eating of homemade ice cream. My mother gives me our August rent to take back to New York. I dream Kathy and me are dumped into a huge lake and are probably going to drown. I wake up as Ted goes looking in the dark for a probably imaginary small animal I thought I'd heard earlier. Last night on waterbed, mostly sleepless. Thursday, 10 September, Las Vegas. It's no fun to say goodbye, even when you're going back to New York City. It was too far to come from, and now she's going to be lonesome. Me, in 25 years, says, I'm sorry I was such a crabapple. She and Kathy to shop briefly here for clothes, back to their jobs. I'm getting on this funny empty airplane. I should have been a songwriter. I am one. Bye, Mom. September 1981.
So what we're going to see now to finish things is a few minutes from a film by Melody London, and she's made a edit for us. And it's actually a film that is really about Mom and Eileen. And I think the way I understand it, Melody was in Paris to talk to Mom in her apartment, and then Eileen came to town, so then there was this chance to make a piece on both of them. And but we're gonna we asked Melody to make a cut that has 2 instances of her reading, one in her apartment, and then the second you'll see. So thank you, Melody.
I went to work for Alan. I was working for him and I was typing up the manuscript for White Shroud. And I thought to myself, I can write like this. I know how to write like this. And I wrote, and I went home and I started writing At Night the States, and I wrote it in about a week. At night the States, whoever you love, that's who you love. The difference between chaos and star, I believe. And in that difference, they believed in some funny way, but that wasn't what I believed that out of this fatigue would be born a light. What is fatigue? There is a man whose face changes continually, but I will never with regard to it or never regard. I will regard yours tomorrow. I will wear purple, will I, and call my name. At night the States, you who are alive, you who are dead. When I love you alone all night, and that is what I do until I can never write from your being enough. I don't want that trick of making it be coaxed from the words. Not tonight, I want it coaxed from myself, being not that, but I'd feel more comfortable about it being words if it were, if that's what it were, for these are the states where what words are true are words, not myself. Montana, Illinois, Escondido. I gave the first reading after everything stopped being online during the first part of COVID. It was great. Everyone has a mask on, my God. I think I still know who you all are. My friends. Poem. It doesn't matter if a poem is clear or not, hard or not. It's basic and ongoing creation of the universe in terms of the particles as I speak it, the poem. If you're reading it, you hear me too. The bits of sound, thought, word, seen, without senses if you're dead. All you have to do with it is nothing. Everything else is such a big deal thing. Poetry's mere reality. No proof, just be here. Proving's a human invention. Poetry is what you do with mind, which is what there is. Just listen a little. No one cares if you understand it. Who understands why we're alive?
Thanks, everybody. Come back tomorrow night for part 2.